Episode 121 of Australia's #1 marketing show. This time I have a fireside chat with George Ryan of Hatchwise, who 4 years ago was earning $10 an hour carting wood. Now he owns and runs a six-figure business and has someone else carting his wood.
Welcome to the Small Business Big Marketing Show, where successful small business owners share their secrets to take your marketing to the next level. Now here's your host, Tim Reid.
G'day everyone, and welcome back to episode 121 of Australia's favourite marketing show. I'm your host, Timbo Reid. You are a motivated small business owner, and we are brought to you by the very, very good folk at Net Registry who help you get your business sorted online. I'm having a bit of a giggle because as I hit record, I hit stop on iTunes, and I am going to make a confession. I was listening to a little bit of Hall & Oates. I know. I'm living in the 80s. My wife keeps reminding me of the fact I keep trying to explain to my kids just how good the music was in that era, but they don't believe me. But I do love it. I'm a child of the 80s, always will be, do love it. Yep. So listening to a bit of Man-Eater by Hall & Oates, what a great song. That really sets me up as being a dag in your mind, doesn't it? Oh, well, what can I do? That's me. What's your favourite song? Put it in the show notes. Put it in the comments of the show notes for this episode. We'd love to hear. We've got to talk more about music. Music can play such a part in a business's marketing strategy. We often, focus on the words and the visuals, but we forget that, great brands appeal to all the senses, hey? Ears, smell, sound, touch, all that type of stuff. Enough of that. Hall & Oates was where it's at. Now, today's episode, very interesting young entrepreneur fellow out of New York we are about to speak to. Before then, as you know, we are brought to you by the very good folks at Net Registry who probably do have a bit of Hall & Oates playing in their offices from time to time. A bit of Pseudo Echo, maybe one of my favourite bands of the 80s, bit of Spandau Ballet. Oh, no, I'm not painting a good picture, am I? Enough. Net Registry, I just want to remind you, they've got a magazine, Net Magazine, N-E-T-T, which you get a subscription on, a 6-month subscription of when you buy anything from Net Registry, a domain name, hosting, web design, SEO, whatever it is. I just got this month's issue, February 2013's issue. We've got articles, or they've got articles, chasing bad debt, online advertising how-tos, avoiding bankruptcy how-tos, how to maximise your PR. They've got a cover story on starting your search engine optimization strategy. It's a fantastic magazine. It is an absolutely high-quality magazine. And, in fact, I'm writing an article for it next month, written an opinion piece, which will appear. But I encourage you to get hold of that magazine by going to netregistry.com.au and buying something from them. And you will go and get a subscription to that for free. That is a good thing. Now, let's talk about today's guest. And, by the way, welcome to all you flying soloists from that flying solo community that we love so dearly. Now, listen, today's guest, George Ryan. George approached me via email, which I'm going to share with you now. I add bits and pieces of that email and give you a sense of how he came to getting on the Small Business Big Marketing Show, and then we'll hop into the interview. But he really caught my attention. He says, "Hey, Timbo, my name is George Ryan. Big fan of Small Business Big Marketing," and he goes on to list a number of reasons why he is a big fan. He also says he has some interesting insights to contribute and would love to be interviewed. Now, by way of a brief introduction, he says, "I've started and run several companies in the past few years, with the most recent one being Hatchwise." And this is a company we're going to talk to George about today in this interview. It's an internet-based crowdsourcing community specialising in logo design. And I'm thinking at this point in time, there's a lot of businesses like that, starting with 99 Designs. But George challenges me on that as to why he entered that space. Hatchwise has grown from nothing to over 13,000 designers that participate regularly, processes thousands of orders a year, and presents clients with an average of 100 designs for an average cost of around $200. We also do not advertise at all. So far, I'm interested. I'm loving it, George. He goes on to say it gives me various reasons why I should interview him, and I like this one. A few examples of things I would love to be able to share with your listeners. Number one, tips on starting a business from nothing. Here we go. 4 years ago at age 22, I was working full-time, 55 hours a week for a lumber yard, making $10 an hour and providing for my wife and daughter, and had no higher education whatsoever. Hated his job and intentionally set out to start his own business. And 4 years later, he's got a thriving six-figure business. And on top of Hatchwise, on top of all that, Hatchwise is featured in articles twice in some pretty high-profile magazines. I reckon George is crushing it. I love the story of young entrepreneurs having a crack and doing good. We've had a few on in the past. I would, if you are one listening and you think you've got a story to tell, hit me up, tim@smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. I would love to hear from you. But let's hear from George and let's get stuck into the details of how George went about doing what he's done. Here's George.
I'm a lumberjack and I'm okay. I sleep all night and I work all day.
George Ryan from Hatchwise, entrepreneur extraordinaire. Welcome to Small Business Big Marketing.
Thank you very much for having me, Tim.
Well, thanks for approaching me in the first place, mate. It's great. I love it. I'm always chasing interviews, and it's particularly fun when someone from overseas approaches to be on the show. Hey, where are you, George?
We're located in New York.
Right. Okay. The hub of the world.
Yeah. Sadly, we're not quite in the city. We're a little more upstate, but we're still got a lot of business going on here.
Yeah, for sure, mate. Hey, listen, now, George, a couple of things to cover with you. I think you've got a really interesting story about entrepreneurism at its most raw, from sort of working in that lumberyard, going through to starting a business that's now generating a six-figure income for you and your family. So I want to really explore that, and then I want to get stuck into some, how you went about starting Hatchwise and what was involved in that from a marketing perspective. So why don't you start by sharing your story? At the age of 22, wife and daughter, full-time at a lumberyard, earning $10 an hour.
Okay. Well, like you said, I was working at a lumberyard. And it wasn't the world's worst job, but, it is a lumberyard. And I didn't really enjoy it. It wasn't bad work, but I've always liked feeling like I was, part of something bigger. I like sort of orchestrating things, seeing things happen. And, I was just driving a truck around delivering stuff. And it got to a point where I was like, I need to be doing something more than this. And I remember going home to my wife and saying, I'm not enjoying this. I'd like to start my own company. And she said, you know what, if that's what you want to do, I'm behind you on that. And so I started working in the evenings and the weekends while I was still working at the lumberyard, trying to get something off the ground. Took me about a year, I think, before it got to the point where I was actually able to, start running my business, quit the job at the lumberyard and run the business full time. Mm-hmm. And during that time, I was pretty much glued to the computer trying to figure out a way to make money.
So listen, tell me, that's interesting. So that's just a classic story. It's almost, it's your cliche escape the cubicle story, except you're escaping a bulldozer or a chainsaw or something. Is there a history of entrepreneurism, of business ownership in your family, or because going from that to what you've done is pretty extreme?
My father, he's not an entrepreneur, so to speak, but he's always been good with, coming up with ways to make money, finding, odd jobs and stuff to where there's a need, he finds a way to fill it. And, that definitely is something he taught me growing up. But mostly it just, came out of me not liking what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And I did run a bunch of little smaller businesses when I was a teenager, stuff like catching bait down at the ocean and selling it to the local bait shops, sort of stuff. So, that was something I had always done.
Yeah. Well, one of the great business concepts is fish where the fish are. So clearly you're doing that. So tell me, just tell me about that point where you're at the lumberyard and was there a point where you're going, nah, this is it. I'm racing home. I'm telling my wife I'm out of here.
Yeah. There there definitely was. And I think that when I hit that point was, for a while you work at a job, you get paid hourly, you get your paycheck. And then after a while, when you're doing work for someone else and you realize that the work that you're doing is worth far, far more than you're getting paid. And I thought there has to be some way to be the guy that is hiring the person to do the work.
You're being paid $10 an hour and you're making someone $100 an hour.
Exactly. Yeah. When you drive a delivery that's worth $50,000 and you drop it off and then you do the math and you're like, I made $80 delivering that. Like, there's something wrong with this equation.
Tell me, okay, George, so you got no higher education, you're racing home at night, you've gone, I'm leaving here, I'm starting my own business, I'm going to make it big. You race home at night. What did you start consuming? What information, did you have an idea of what you wanted, what kind of business you wanted to start? Where did you start?
I've always had an interest in computers and web design and, graphic design in general. It's something I did when I was a teenager. I was always on the computer. And what I initially started off with, I thought, hey, I'll fix computers. And I had never really fixed a computer before. I'd fooled around, but had never fixed anyone else's. But I thought I'll figure it out as I go along. And so I stuck up a couple flyers at, grocery stores around the area, little bulletin boards they had. And I said, I'll fix your computer for $50. Any problem, you pay for parts. I'll take it home. You give me $50 if I fix it. If I don't fix it, no cost. And I think I fixed 2 or 3 computers, and it wasn't horrible work. But where I actually got to start with that was I was designing business cards for my new computer repair business, and I could not come up with a logo to save my life. Mm-hmm. And so I was looking online, trying to see what there was what options there were as far as logo design went. And that got me really interested in logo design, and it sort of grew over a few years into Hatchwise.
Yeah, right. So, okay, in steps Hatchwise. So you've kind of, as so often is the case, a business owner has experienced a problem and gone, you know what, I'm going to find a solution for that, and that's where the business is born out of. Hatchwise is interesting, George, because as I was saying to you off the air, okay, well, let's explain Hatchwise. It's a logo competition site. Is that the best way of summarising it?
Yeah, that is the best way to say it. We crowdsource the designs, and it's basically run in contest format. Say how much you want to spend on a design. You list your design brief, and the designers will create completed designs for you. And you pick the one you like the most, pay them whatever your budget was, and you get the full rights to the design. Okay,
so what really interests me about your story is that, well, you've chosen an industry that it's pretty crowded, and it's dominated, well, certainly out of Australia, it's dominated by 99 Designs. And I know there's a whole lot of other logo competition sites, plus people can go to Elance, plus people can go to Freelancer and Odesk, and, the list goes on. And I love the courage you've shown in entering such a crowded marketplace. You could argue that crowded marketplaces are good to enter because there's lots of money going around. But did you ever at some point go, you know what, it's too busy?
Actually, when we launched, 99 Designs was spun off of SitePoint. They had it running over on the forums there for a while. And we launched about 3 months after 99 Designs actually officially launched. And that was only because we'd been in development for a while. So it was definitely, we came in couple months after crowdspring 99 Designs. And I did realize, 99 Designs was going to be big. SitePoint was fairly large already when it came out. But I've always been... How did you feel? How did you feel when... So you obviously been working almost alongside each other, not knowing that both of you were about to launch, and then 99 Designs comes out. I mean, clearly it wasn't the website it is now. It's a very functional, incredibly useful website. What was that feel? Did you feel like giving up? No, it was actually encouraging, because if you have competition, I mean, it is competition, but it also means that there's something to compete for. Mm-hmm. If you're starting a business and there's absolutely no one else in the field doing it, maybe you're going to be like Groupon or something, and you'll actually have a home run with it. Yep. But there's a lot of people that put all the time and money into a project or a company that just doesn't work out because there isn't a market for it. When you have competition, you know that there's something to compete over. Yeah, fully. So 99 Designs has rolled out. What was the other one you said that rolled out at the same time? CrowdSpring.
CrowdSpring, a couple of big ones.
Yeah. And they both had, 99 Designs had SitePoint behind it. CrowdSpring had, I think, a couple $1 million in funding. And I had $1,000 that I paid someone to develop the script for Hatchwise.
Wow.
First launch.
So would I be right in saying, because I didn't realise that you'd launched so closely to the 99 Designs launch, therefore the idea of a logo competition website, where did you get the idea from, besides experiencing a problem? Did you yourself come up with the idea of having logo competitions, or was it happening elsewhere?
Actually, I was I was a member on a couple of forums. One of them was a domain name forum, discuss domain names. And they had a little sub forum on there where they would hold, design contests for like $10 or $20. And that gave me the idea to try and, make a business model out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And before I launched Hatchwise for a little while, and overlapping when I was running Hatchwise, I did run a logo design firm that I started online that I've since sold.
Yeah, right.
And that was that had a very conventional front to it. You get 3 logo concepts, number of revisions, a set price for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I ran it like a logo contest in the back end.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd actually manage the project. I'd work with the designers, and I'd pay the ones whose entries were selected by the client. And then eventually,
where were you getting those designers from?
I got some of them from, they had worked with them on Freelancer before. Some of them were on the domain name forum there. I ended up with maybe 6 or 7 that did a lot of work. I think they were probably working full time with us at the time.
Okay, so George, Hatchwise, it's interesting because you're kind of dealing with the chicken or the egg thing. So it's a bit like a directory, like when you launched Hatchwise, you either needed clients, but you weren't going to get clients if you didn't have designers, and you weren't going to get designers if you didn't have clients wanting logos. So how did you manage that?
Honestly, that pretty much just like took care of itself. I had the emails of, I think it was about 200 designers by that point that I had been working with on the logo design firm I was talking about. Mm-hmm. And I sent an email out to them, said, hey, we have a new site we started. Feel free to sign up there. I had a few of them sign up. And then I think I did a interview or 2 on a couple of podcasts when we launched, and it pretty much took off from there.
They're pretty good, those podcasts.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Yeah, podcasts are awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
But it happened gradually. It wasn't all that much at first, but it grew. And I think we had 700 or 800 designers within 3 or 4 months. And that was just all word of mouth. That's just people, designers telling other designers about it.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. And I can imagine that community quite easily growing pretty organically, pretty quickly. What about getting clients? You actually said in your email to me you've never advertised. The advertising's one form of marketing, but how did you start to get clients?
Yeah, like I said in the email, there's virtually no advertising. My caveat there is the word virtually. I have probably put a couple $1,000s into advertising over, 4 or 5 years.
What are we talking, AdWords or what advertising?
I did a little bit on AdWords. I can honestly say I've never tracked $1 of advertising to actually any sales, which is why
no one has.
I advertised all that much. But yeah, I did a little bit in AdWords, a little bit, like under competitors' names, because they were doing that with me. And after a while, I, was just going to focus on actually building up a reputation with the clients and asking people what they want from the site and doing our very best to give it to them. When I was running the logo design firm I was talking about, I advertised exclusively with AdWords with that. It's a while back. And problem with that, if you have low margins and your AdWords cost goes up even, 4 or 5%, it can put you out of business overnight. Someone else comes in, they bid on you, the keyword that you're buying, your costs go up and you're not making any money all of a sudden. So my goal with Hatchwise was to start a company that did not rely on advertising, that relied on word of mouth. And I have done that.
Okay. Every time someone on my show mentions word of mouth, I have to say my view is word of mouth isn't a marketing strategy. It's an outcome of great marketing. So clearly, outcome of great marketing and particularly great product delivery, great service delivery. So in order to get word of mouth, what were you doing? Were you over delivering, and how? If you were, how were you over delivering?
I've always just focused on making sure that, the customers are happy. Right now, we have a policy instituted a while back where we actually call and speak with customers. Most of our customers, once they wrap up a project, say, were you happy with everything? Is there anything we can do to make you happier? Make sure they understand exactly what's going to happen with the artwork once they get it. Monitoring projects, making sure they're getting good results, working with the designers to feel that they're, being taken care of, that they're happy with the way the site's being run. Just running a company that I would want to be a customer of.
The customers, they must fall off their chair. They say, "You're calling me? I thought I was dealing with a website."
The customers love it. And I think especially in this day and age when, you do deal with a lot of websites, and it's really easy to just think of a website as a static page, with no face behind it. And you get a call from someone that says, "Hey, these are the people you've been, designing a logo with for the past 10 days. People really like that. And
I think that's
it is nice.
Incredibly refreshing, because I think a lot of business owners who have an online business almost hide behind the online business and don't reply to emails and don't put their phone number in there, make their phone number available and don't call their clients. And it's really no excuse.
I completely agree. And it is important to actually let them know there's a real person there. It's the same as if we were in your town and you could come in the store and talk to us.
Yep.
There's no difference there just because it's the internet.
George, I want to keep pushing on the marketing, mate. You've done minimal advertising. You've provided great customer service. You're delivering a good product. What else have you done to get the Hatchwise name out there? You've been on a couple of podcasts, but come on, I'm going to ask you to wrap some numbers around Hatchwise in a minute, and they're big numbers. So what have you done?
One thing that helped us out greatly, we'd been growing pretty steadily. We were doing well, and I'm confident we would have, been very successful regardless. But one thing that definitely gave us a big boost was Inc. magazine ran a story on logo design contests. And they went and ran a bunch of projects on different websites, different crowdsourcing companies. And one of them was on Hatchwise.
Oh, thank you.
And
thank you.
No idea that was happening. And we got a call from Inc. magazine, and they're like, "We just want to let you know you're going to be in the next, issue of Inc. Is there, just get their information straight?" And I was like, "What, like Inc. magazine, like the one I have here on my desk?" And they were like, "Yeah, that Inc. magazine." And so we waited and really weren't sure what it was, going to say about Hatchwise, what exactly the article was about. And when it came in the mail, we looked through it, and what they'd done was a sort of a taste test of 4 different logo design services, one of which was 99 Designs. And they had examples of the different, logos they'd gotten from each company, and they had, they were like better, best. Yep. And,
don't tell me Hatchwise won.
Hatchwise won. Hatchwise,
man, that is gold.
Gave them they said Hatchwise gave them the most entries and the best quality among the entries. And it was a really cool experience actually seeing what I'd been working on for a while there, through someone else's eyes, and someone else saying this is a really cool company. Man,
but you can't buy that. I mean, what's that worth? I mean, Inc. magazine for people who don't know, I guess you'd compare it to a Fast Company type magazine, a red herring.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think Fast Company is owned or at least very closely affiliated with Inc. And yeah, they have well over 1 million readers.
Wow.
It was a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. So, that is absolute gold. And as I say, you can't buy it. Now, that brings me, and thankfully, the logos that were delivered in Inc. magazine's Ghost Shop of Hatchwise were great logos. Now, my experience, George, with logo competitions is that it can be a bit of a raffle. And in fact, whilst you may get 80, 100, 120 logos delivered on a competition that cost you, $50, $100, $300, a lot of those logos are crap.
Correct. Because it is open to, just about anyone, you are going to get people that, submit stuff. They're just starting out. They're figuring it out. And you'll submit stuff that is junk. That does happen. Mm-hmm. Those are in every contest. But in my experience, there are always really quality designs. We have designers that consistently win projects again and again. And that's because they're really good at what they do.
Yeah. Well, and that's my experience too. There's always, and it's a small number, but every time I've run a logo competition or outsourced some kind of design, there is 2, 3, 4 that just save the day.
Mm-hmm, yeah, definitely. And working with the designers, a lot of people make the mistake of just sitting back and watching the designs come in and then, deciding what they want at the end. Instead of going on and when you get a logo that's entered that you don't like at all, respectfully telling the designer why you don't like it. Mm. And at Hatchwise, we leave those comments open for all the other designers so they can see what you like, what you don't like. And, people they give us a call or, we send us an email after 2 days and they're like, I don't like anything that's being submitted. Yeah. And we're like, tell the designers why you don't like it. Check back with us once the project ends in 8 days, and I promise you'll have something you love. It's and like 99% of the time, it happens.
The communication. Hello. It's pretty simple. George, 4 years ago, you're working in a lumber yard. 4 years on, you've got a business called Hatchwise that seems to be rocking it. Can you wrap some numbers around it for us, please?
We have just a little over 13,000 designers registered on the site. We did close the site down 2 new designers for a while there. Otherwise, the number would be considerably higher, just because we had a lot of really talented designers. There are the new designers you were talking about that, do bring the quality down a little bit sometimes. Mm-hmm. So, we focused on just working with our existing designers, getting the quality up. We have opened it up somewhat since. But so that number is about 13,000. We've had over 600,000 designs submitted to the site. I think somewhere around 7,000 projects completed. And again, that's all with virtually no advertising, mostly all word of mouth. I don't keep track of page views like I should or actual visitors to the site. I honestly find that distracts somewhat from actually, like you could be getting billions of page views if you're not getting any orders, what's the, other than telling you you're doing something wrong. Yep. How does it help? So I focused more on actually getting orders, talking to customers, talking to the designers, figuring out what people want and not worrying so much about page views. But from the tracking code I stuck on the site, I think it's somewhere, we have at least 27 million since we launched.
Sensational.
Yeah.
Sensational. Wrap some numbers around. Can you wrap some dollars around it? I know you don't want to get specific, but what are we talking? It's a 6-figure a year business.
Yeah, definitely. We've probably done at least a couple $1 million in gross sales since we launched.
How many staff?
I don't have exact numbers for that. I have 2 employees that work in office and not full time with me.
Huh. And what about it? Do you outsource besides the designers?
We do outsource somewhat. We outsource, coding projects. And if we need anything design related, we generally use Hatchwise.
Yeah, funny
it's
that.
Nice having a company that you'd like to use yourself.
Yep.
We outsource, coding projects, outsource management of our server. That was something I did myself for a while, and I had learned the hard way that it's something that I really need a professional to manage. That was after I took the site down for 3 days last year.
You don't want to do that when you've got an online business.
Yeah, no, it was not a very good 3 days there, but we made it through it. And then we have other stuff like outsourcing to payroll service and that stuff. But we do a lot of outsourcing, the more complicated coding projects.
George, you've got some pretty strong views on running a small business. You've been doing it now for 4 years. What give us your top 3 things? If you imagine talking to one of the listeners who are either, I know there's a lot of listeners who are still trapped in the cubicle working for the man. I know there's a lot of listeners working for themselves with their own small businesses. What are these strong opinions all about?
Well, I think we've touched on a few of them, just in our conversation so far. But I think number one is run a company that you're proud of and a company that you would want to be a customer of. If there's any element to your company that you would not like if you were buying your product or service, then you should change that. That's extremely important to me. I like to be able to, honestly say, I think my company is the best. I don't think there's any reason you should go to any of my competitors. That's first and foremost. Mm-hmm. Secondly, I think that be honest about how large you are. Don't inflate numbers. Don't, try to pretend that you have some massive office in the city if it's 3 people in the suburbs, more like, Hatchwise is right now. Especially it seemed to be, late 90s, early 2000s, there seemed to be this push for companies to appear larger than they are. You get, the automated phone systems that make it sound like you have 75 employees. People talking about departments and giving themselves big titles. And especially when you're dealing with small businesses, people like it. People call and they ask how many employees are working there. And I say, I own the company. I've got 2 people working here with me. And they like that. They like knowing that they're dealing with real people. Yep. Especially in the age when, massive companies are getting a bad rap more and more. Yep. So just be honest. If it's you working out of your garage, tell people it's me working out of my garage. There's nothing wrong with that.
What do you say to someone, George, who is thinking of starting a business and they keep coming up against their own personal block of, someone's already done that, or it's a crowded marketplace, or, what do you say to someone?
I would tell people that if you don't like what you're doing, there are other options. You can do stuff. There's a lot of people out there that aren't happy with companies or products that they're currently using. Mm-hmm. There's no reason you can't be helping them out with that. And don't be afraid to take the risk to, leave something secure, and actually go and, feel a little insecure for a while, feel like mm-hmm. you're living paycheck to paycheck, it is worth it in the end. But also don't underestimate the amount of work that starting a business is. Yep. You don't get to go home at the end of the day and kick your feet up and say, I'm done till tomorrow. Before I go to bed, I am working. When I wake up, mm-hmm. I am working. Mm-hmm. That's how it works. But it is worth it in the end, I think.
Yeah, absolutely it is. What keeps you up at night, George?
There's so many different elements to running a business, so many different things to worry about, especially when you're, a small company like the one I have, and you can't afford to have, a lawyer that's on staff. You can't afford to have a team of people managing your servers. You can't afford to have, 5 different programming guys. You sort of got to do all that yourself or work with people that are doing it with you. And, you take a lot of responsibility on. It is a lot of responsibility, and make sure you're okay with that before you attempt something like starting your own business. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, great. Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, George, thanks so much for coming on Small Business Big Marketing. I admire what you've done. I think it's a great story, inspirational, and may Hatchwise continue to bloom.
Well, thanks so much, Tim. It was great talking to you.
Thanks, mate. What about George Ryan, guys? Are you feeling inspired? I certainly am. I do love hearing those kind of stories, $10 an hour, working in a timber yard, providing for wife, young daughter, and now doing great things. I love that. I love the fact that he entered a crowded marketplace. I love the fact that he's just a successful young man, and may success continue for him and for you, the Small Business Big Marketing listener. Hey, last week's episode, 120 of Small Business Big Marketing, I interviewed Jason Miles, who is a Pinterest specialist, written a great book on it, is running a business with his wife that relies on Pinterest to send a lot of traffic to their website. I just found it such an interesting interview, and I know many of you did too, judged by the amount of sharing and liking and retweeting and all that has happened with that episode. Subsequently, Jason very kindly offered to do some consulting to me on how I can optimize the Small Business Big Marketing's Pinterest activity, Pinterest strategy. And just in the last week, I spent an hour and a half on the phone, or actually via webinar with Jason, so I could record what was happening on the screen and turn it into a video. Goodness me, it was just the most useful training where basically Jason went through the Small Business Big Marketing's Pinterest presence, which is pretty basic at the moment, soon to change as a result of the consultation. And basically, went through every part of it and said, this is what he would do if he was me, and this is what every small business should do if they want to use Pinterest. And I suggest having listen to episode 120, because it'll convince you that Pinterest is a good thing to add, good strategy to add to your online marketing. But he spent an hour and a half just going through how to optimize your Pinterest, and amazing, absolutely amazing. Not that hard. One of the greatest learnings, one of the biggest learnings is that it is a good idea to build your website up from the ground with Pinterest in mind. Now, that's not very helpful if you've already got an existing website, but he does give examples and ways, tactics to overcome that. But it is a great way of generating traffic. It is a great way of generating referral links. And I really encourage you to have a listen to this consult. It's a bit of an over-the-shoulder consult, which is going to be available on my products page shortly, and in inside the Small Business Big Marketing Forum, which I'm launching in the next couple of weeks. More on that to come. Suffice to say, it's going to be a place where you, the listener, can join me inside a password-protected forum and talk about your marketing and marketing in general, in the aim of, like all things in Small Business Big Marketing, growing your business. That is going to live inside the forum if you're a forum member, but you're also going to be able to buy that consult on the products page. It was gold, and I intend to do that for other social mediums and other aspects of your marketing that we've all got questions around, whether it be Facebook or Google or webinars or whatever. I'm going to produce really detailed interviews that explain to all of us how to make best use of it in our marketing strategy. Enough from me. Lots of gold coming your way, dripping from the Small Business Big Marketing headquarters ceiling over the coming weeks. Michael Klim, Olympian, going to revisit how his business is going since I last interviewed him in episode 6. Can you believe it? Episode 6, about 3 years ago. He's got a business called Milk, male skincare business. Touching base with Climmy and seeing how that's going. Spoke to a wonderful lady, and that interview will be coming up in a couple of weeks' time, about charisma and how to use charisma as a marketing strategy. Who would have thought? And lots more. If you've got someone you think would be great to interview, send them over. tim@smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. Remember, we're brought to you by the good folk at Net Registry, who help you get your marketing sorted online. Until next week, may your marketing be the best marketing of any small business in your category ever. Enough. See ya.
You've been listening to the Small Business Big Marketing Show with Tim Reid. Want more marketing goodness? Then visit smallbusinessbigmarketing.com.